The Realty Debate with Manisha Natarajan, powered by Reliance Home Finance.
The most awaited legislation for the real estate sector finally got passed with all eyes in the Rajya Sabha earlier today. Calling it a historic day, the Union Minister for Housing thanked all the members present for supporting the bill. The legislation, which aims to regulate the sector, brings in transparency and helps protect consumer interests. It will now face Lok Sabha, where the ruling party enjoys a majority, so we don't really foresee any more hurdles. Let's hear out the minister first.
This is a historic bill which will go a long way to address the problems of the consumers and also bring in some transformation in the real estate sector. I try to bring an alliance between home buyers as well as developers so that both can contribute to the growth of the sector.
All right, we've got a whole panel of stakeholders, starting with those who deserve a big congratulations from us for fighting for RERA. Abhay Upadhyay, President, Fight for RERA, with me here in the Delhi studio. Also with me, Sudhir Vora. He's an urban planner and has also been canvassing for RERA. In the Mumbai studio, Puneet Chaturvedi, advocate, Bombay High Court, Prakash Padikal, activist, Fight for RERA, and Gulam Zia, Executive Director, Infrastructure from Knight Frank India. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. So, major excitement. Abhay, let's start with you. How are you feeling? I mean, the fight's been so long. Is it feeling a little bit like a deja vu?
Absolutely fantastic day. I want to thank every party which is involved today. To begin with, this government, from the very beginning they said that they are very keen to pass this bill, and then when we met Rahul ji, he was so nice with us. He immediately agreed. He said we will issue every statement which was possible.
So Abhay, that whole feeling that Congress was not in favor of this bill, did you find any substance to it, or do you think they were on board as well?
See,
completely?
when we met him, immediately Rahul ji said that he will support the bill. He came out in the open. There was suspense before that, but when we met him, he made it absolutely clear that he is in support of it, and whatever needs to be done, he will do it. And I thank him that he actually did whatever was required, and ultimately the floor was cleared that the bill may be taken, and we were hopeful.
All right,
that it will be
fair
passed.
enough. I think let me just go to Gulam. Gulam, it's a really big day. Sum it up for us why this bill was so critical. I mean, I can say it all, but I don't want to. This is your moment. All of you who've been really pushing for this bill.
Well, to begin with, I would say this is the day to be written in the golden, it should be in gilded texture, it should be written in. For real estate, it's a big achievement, it's a big day. Especially for home buyers, because those were one poor tribes who were always neglected all throughout historically in this whole game of real estate. So here is the day of them. So today it is declared in India that consumer is the king as far as real estate is concerned. If you're talking about some few highlights, well, a lot of things were actually going back and forth, as they were saying, more than a decade to actually see this great day in the history of Indian real estate. Now, in those 10 years, a lot of things have really changed from one end to the other. But the end of it, today at least, those 2 or 3 major changes that have been brought about one was escrow, which earlier was 70% of the amount of construction to be set aside to ensure that no swindling takes place, is something last time was brought down to 50%, is once again taken back to 70% level. So that's once again a good news for consumers. Developers will obviously think otherwise. On the other side, very clearly, the size of the project has also been brought down. Earlier there was a limitation that a certain size, but today it is brought down to even if a project which is comprising of 8 apartments or size of 500 square meters will be under the purview of real estate under RERA. So these are one of, yes of course, how can I forget the defect liability, which was earlier 2 years. The structural defect liability has been jacked up to 5 years. So there are a lot of these things which are something for every home buyers to cheer about. So I would say I can go on and on, but then there are other panelists also, they also must talk about it, either which way is right, or positive or negative.
Let me get Prakash Padikal's view as well. Prakash, exciting day?
It was a wonderful day, one of the, as you very correctly said, to be written in golden letters. And one thing is proved here is that if people want to make the government or the opposition to act, we can do it. Fight for RERA. We had been struggling for this bill for last 8 months, meeting, going pillar to post, meeting everyone around, but the government was really, the present government has done wonderfully well in, bringing out this bill and getting it passed in the Raj Sabha. Now, of course, I am sure that it will get cleared in the Lok Sabha and it will become a bill. Once it is enacted, it is going to help millions and millions of people who are suffering, roti, kapra or makan. And the makan dream, the very primary requirement of life, with less hurdles and struggle, people can have that.
All right, the biggest thing is that so far, despite the fact that makan is such a critical part of for anybody's life and one's largest savings, life savings go into real estate, this was an unregulated sector in India. If a consumer had a complaint against a developer, he would have to make endless rounds to consumer court or civil courts, and there was complete absence of standardization and consumer protection. Sudhir Vora, the industry has grown. You've got lakhs of developers. I don't even know who you call a builder or a developer now in India anymore. But once this becomes an act, in case of any grievance, how does a buyer's life change? I think that is what we need to find out. How will it change? Does he still have to go to court, or first he goes to regulator? Explain it to us.
Well, at the outset, I think this is a landmark consumer bill which has taken a decade to come up, and it's also been done very democratically. I watched the TV debates and all. And the whole process has been very good. Answering your question directly, yes, this will start sorting out the anomalies in the real estate industry. The consumers will now there will be more transparency. They will know what they have paid for. They'll know what they are getting. They will know when they are getting it. They'll have a defect liability period of a few years within which they can fix the defects. And there'll be a whole load of things which will come out from the authority, which will balance between both the consumer and the developer. So the issues about what the consumer pays in case he doesn't pay on time, and the same amount, same interest, all those issues will come up.
You've raised a really important point. So far, it was the buyer's money, yet he really had very, very few rights. Isn't it, Abhay Upadhyay? He hardly had any rights. The buyer-seller agreement was one-sided. He was told, sign it, take the product. Otherwise, don't sign it, don't take the product. He literally had no say in that one-sided agreement. So I think let's take point by point. Does this fix the one-sided buyer-seller agreements? Do you think from now on, any new project which is launched will have an even agreement between buyers and sellers?
See, as far as this legislation is concerned, this is a very comprehensive legislation. And I'm very happy, I want to bring it to the notice of the viewer, that every problem which a buyer has faced today, some or the other lawmaker today has spoken about it. Whether our money is stuck, whether we are seeing all the brochures and the final product which we are giving is not matching with what we were told that we will be receiving it, and whether the one-sided agreement, whether the changes in the sanction plan which was done, we are told that it will be 17-story building and suddenly it becomes 19-story building. Builders were doing as they wanted, and obviously, and not only that, it is very heartening to see one of the lawmaker mentioning on the floor of the house that there is a nexus which is there between builder lobby, between politicians, authorities, and it is now out in the open. Now, good part is that nothing can be perfect, but as far as this legislation is concerned, this is taking care of many of the issues. Now, one example I want to give here, how this will take care. The interest which we are paying today, if we delay, most of the builders are charging at 18%, whereas they pay somewhere around 4%. Now, there was an anomaly here. Now, this act says that builder cannot charge more than what he is paying. He cannot pay less than what he is charging.
Absolutely. So there's a parity. I think
yes.
The biggest thing is Rohit Raj Modi joins us. Rohit representing the entire developer community, CREDAI as a body. I've got the reaction saying it's a very positive reaction, but In the past, all developers have expressed huge concerns against this bill becoming an act. Are you going to leave those behind now and say, look, it's a reality and we are all going to have to work within the parameters of the new act?
Manisha, let me start by saying that CREDAI welcomes this act. This act will lead to enhancement to credibility, trustworthiness, and transparency in our sector, which will benefit all the stakeholders, more so the consumer. CREDAI was never against it. We have always worked along with the government to try to have a balanced bill so that it leads to the growth of the sector and does not lead to another harassment or another watchdog sitting on the sector, leading to further delays and corruption. And I'm very, very glad to say on behalf of CREDAI that our parliamentarians, our lawmakers have done a splendid job. It's a very balanced bill. And I was hearing one of the panelists saying that many lawmakers spoke about the troubles which the consumers have gone through. Even I was listening to the entire debate. Yes, our lawmakers are very well aware of the kind of situation that the consumers were suffering from. We welcome this act. We think that this will help in strengthening the sector much further and will help us to grow into an institution. And last but not the least, this also paves the way for a long-standing demand of grant of infrastructure status to the housing sector. And I think it's the right time and an opportune moment where the finance ministry should look at granting infrastructure status to the housing sector as well.
Rohit, another question that I'd like to ask you is, I think even a former Secretary of Urban Development, Sudhir Krishna, told us that, look, the bill's provisions are fantastic for the buyer and the consumer, but this bill would have been completed only if you could bring in government authorities who are responsible for giving approvals for projects into its ambit. Is there something, or have you heard of any thought on how that aspect is going to be handled, because the bill doesn't provide for covering them at all?
See, there are essentially two large lacunas that we see in this, of which one the UD minister was gracious enough to address today in the parliament. I will take that one first. We have always asked for that this bill should be prospective, not retrospective, in the sense that the ongoing existing construction should not be covered in this, because that would open a huge plethora of litigations all over. It will stall the running projects, because if I've got a dozen running projects, I'll have to stop all of them once the act becomes a law, make all of them to comply in the letter and the spirit, and then move forward, because I don't want to be on the wrong side of the law. But Minister has said that he would look into these concerns in the rules. To address your first point, yes, the act will get its teeth only if the urban local bodies or the development authorities are also covered on the ambit of it, because let's not forget that right from the approval of a building plan or grant of a license or a change of land use till the completion certificate, we work under the aegis, the umbrella of the ULB. So without them being responsible and accountable, we are leaving a major stakeholder not covered in this.
Fair enough. So let me ask an urban planner here, Sudhir Vora. This is a very genuine point. I mean, this is one point I completely support, and I'm on the side of the developers, that if you do not bring in urban local bodies who are responsible for giving approvals, there's a huge lacuna in this bill. Have you actually lobbied to get that addressed as well?
Well, actually, there are two sides of it. I don't think there is a lacuna in this bill. It is known that it is generally widely accepted that municipal governance in our country is founded in corruption and delays. I'm making that as a general statement. However, developers know how to get things done quickly. And this bill says that you can only advertise a project after you've got all your approvals. So effectively, the approval stage of a project is over before the clauses of this bill kick in.
Okay, so
it's
then,
really a
then
consumer.
that brings me, then I get that. So this bill is saying first get all your basic approvals. Of course, in the middle, things also change. I'm sure the regulator, once he comes in, will look at not a genuine delay, by a developer or a delay because it's got stalled by the Environment Ministry or any other issues. Ghulam Zia, now in a larger context, developers have a very big pain point saying if we've got to wait for all approvals before we launch a project, we don't get finance for land or for construction easily in this country, and who's got the wherewithal to actually take up those costs of financing? So we have to be allowed to go to the consumer or the buyer earlier. What's your, you play both sides of the industry. Tell us what's fair, what's not.
Okay, let me once again, since you have said that we play both sides of it, so let me first of all bring two aspects of what the developer and the planner were talking about. Let me first of all say that it's not that you get all permissions before the project is started. A lot of these permissions, like for example, the CCs, the commencement certificates are actually at various levels, especially if you are doing a tower of, say, 100-story. Every 7th story you have to go out for permissions and get your permissions accordingly. So those are things which are coming throughout during the life of the project. So it is not that you actually get all your projects before you kickstart, approval before you kickstart the project. So that is something which has to be also considered in this whole debate. On the other side, let me also, as he very rightly said, that the developers of the country are very well aware of the system and they have been working within the system. So if I draw another parallel to it, a developer before starting the project would have tied up his finances, would have gone to the banks, to the financiers, to the NBFCs or whatever, and even they would have asked for 10 things. He has already complied and hence he is getting the finance. Similar thing is about approvals as well. So if you are actually giving all your paperwork, if you are complying with whatever requirements, the permission should come. I don't want to really go by this premise that everybody out there is corrupt. It is not so. And you have been working within the system. So I'm actually not unduly worried about this aspect that they are not covered and hence we will have a huge problem with this whole RERA because the government or approving authorities are not a part of it. So at least my view is it doesn't matter much.
All right. Let me get some buyers' reactions as well. Oinitam, our special correspondent, is standing by with some of the buyers who were so frustrated with the whole process of buying a house that they actually became activists and decided to help and fight for RERA. Oinitam, do I see a happy lot or do I just see a whole lot of buyers who are simply relieved that this has happened?
Yes, Manisha, let me just quickly go across to a bunch of home buyers like you mentioned. Yeah, totally distressed and aggrieved, but I can see them smiling now. So first to you, Nitin, how does it feel? What are your expectations now?
First of all, it's a big win for the urban middle class because everybody talks about the poor people and everything, but there's an urban middle class which is won today. People like me who already suffered. It took about 7 years plus to get my own home. And we filed 2 court cases. I went to CCI, went to Compact and had to win that and still get something. But at least for people now who buy homes, will at least get a better deal. And I really, through your channel, would like to request all the builders now that if they try and be fair, customers just want their homes, they don't really want to go into litigation. If they try and be fair with us, they will save a lot of money on litigation and they'll make a lot more profit. I think the most important point that I really liked in this particular bill was the provision for saving money or keeping money aside for construction. Because a lot of consumers of Unitech and other builders are suffering because money got diverted somewhere else.
Yes. Monica, coming to you, you have a case against you from your developer.
That's right. I'm really thrilled. I'm glad that Parliament finally woke up and passed the bill, long overdue. I'm hoping that some of the benefits will be retrospective. But prospectively, definitely it'll clean up the system. That's what I'm hoping. And it seems to be bringing in a lot of accountability and responsibility, both on the government and the builder lobby. So hoping for good things. If not, then we'll carry on the fight.
Right. Yashri, it's been a long battle for you too. You're still struggling. How does it feel now? What are your expectations?
I am feeling we have got another freedom from the unscrupulous builders after 68 years of independence. And it is a very, very welcome move by the new government and the Congress also. And I think I saw the live telecast on Rajya Sabha. Each and every party was in favor of this. And we hope that we will get justice and justice for all the home owners who are struggling, fighting. I have been fighting for 6 years. I have a FIR also registered against MRMGF. But still, the systems are not in place. it's taking slow chal raha process is going on. I don't know. So let this bill come and then we have good hope.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining. Back to you, Manisha.
Thank you, Oinita. Well, relieved buyers, but I think, we've just heard Rohit Raj Modi say that he's also got some sort of assurance from the housing minister saying that don't worry, it will not be retrospectively applied to ongoing projects. Now, that's very worrying. Abhay, is that so? I mean, there are Unitech projects stuck for 7-8 years. There are JP projects where the company has gone bankrupt, taken money 90% from the buyer. There's no work happening or very little work happening. There's 3C, a company which just has no visibility on a couple of its projects. I mean, I can go on and on. BPTP, where there is intention to deliver, but it's going to take a very, very long time. My question is, the maximum pain point is in projects and amongst buyers who are stuck. I'm not saying those who have delayed for a year and a half, those could be some genuine reasons as well. But buyers who've been stuck in some of these huge big developers or so-called big developers, if this bill or act does not bring them under its provisions, it's a battle lost, isn't it?
Well, Manisha, I was there in the Rajya Sabha, and I am not aware of any such assurance from the Honorable Minister. And as far as this act is concerned, there is no amendment being passed in this, as we all have seen. And the act clearly says that all the projects where CC has not been issued will be covered. So as far as act is concerned, it is very, very clear. Now, coming to the point of that builders, CREDAI member was mentioning here, that we have been, there's a problem in getting approvals and sanctions. You see, we are talking two things here. These are two different points.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you didn't hear anything.
No.
So Rohit, I mean, here we have Abhay Upadhyay saying he did not hear the minister saying that nothing will be, it will not be applicable on ongoing projects. So my question to you is, the pain points are with, you heard me name some of the developers. How do those people get any kind of justice if it's not going to be applicable to them?
Sure. Manisha, there are two parts to what you're saying. Let me first clarify what Mr. Upadhyay was raising it.
Okay.
That in response to a comment or a feedback by one of the member of parliament, Honorable Minister said that we will consider your point while drafting of rules.
Okay.
So it's not something which that I am privy to. It was said very much on the live television.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is what.
Okay, that is one. Secondly, a lot of ministers, a lot of parliamentarians gave their inputs.
But Rohit, my question to you is, if at all the minister
the
does
minister only
consider,
said
how
that
do
he
you
would consider
how do you separate the wheat from the chaff? Is what I'm asking you. How do you separate the willful defaulters? I'm talking about a buyer, willful defaulter to the buyer, vis-a-vis those who have got stuck because of some reason and it's not a major reason and their intention is to deliver.
Manisha, if I were to point out that, you see, most of the names, and I'm sure you can go on and on about the names, pertain to only one geography in this country. Today, if you were to include all the ongoing under construction projects, say I have a project which is running fine, my consumers are happy and everything is all right, I've made 50%, I've sold 40% and it's under construction, I will have to actually put a stop to it, modify documentation, modify banking and all such things before I restart again. So there is going to be a stagnation period. Any reform which comes, any grand reform that comes, always carries a grandfathering period. You cannot have something where the production cycle is 4 to 5 years long and you say that this gets enacted today and from tomorrow onwards it's implementable on you. We have to be practical as well. So
Rohit, I get that.
this has been our request with the government to put a grandfathering provision on this.
But it hasn't been put in. Ghulam Zia, now weigh both sides of the argument and tell me, I mean, the developers like Rohit Raj Modi, Gitambar Anand, all CREDAI members, or at least the head of CREDAI, the convening body, they consist of a group of developers who are probably delivering in time and are doing a good job. Now outside of them, there is a lot of distress, right? How do you ensure that they don't suffer and the other ones who need to be nabbed by authorities are nabbed as well?
Well, to begin with, it has to have a retrospective effect very clearly, because as you rightly say, there are thousands of such buyers who are suffering, who would have paid through their noses, their savings of a lifetime would be stuck right now, and not to take care of that is something which just can't be done. So it has to have retrospective effect. And if I have to answer this query that I don't understand, why do you need to shut your construction activity because that laborer who is laying a brick or pouring the concrete obviously is not coming in to help you comply with your requirements. So the requirements of RERA will be something which that a developer will have to put up perhaps a separate team to come up, understand the whole requirement and then continue to comply with this. So that I'm sure there will be a provision of time for you to get 100% compliant, because even otherwise lots of these accounting methods keep changing in the business environments. We never say that I will stop manufacturing of my cars only because a particular accounting requirement is changing. So these are things which continue alongside. So there would be the need of putting up a certain team to take care of the requirements of RERA and become compliant. So I don't really buy this argument that you'll have to shut the shop in the middle when you have to really come up compliant with this requirements.
Fair enough. Let's see how this pans out. I'm sure, like you said, it's a new bill, new regulation. Industry will take time, but there's lots more to discuss. Like we said, it's a historical day and we still have to go back to lots of provisions and just iron them out or actually take a deep look into them and how they will help the buyer. Rohit Raj Modi, Ghulam Zia, I know that you're in high demand today and you've got to go to my rival channels as well. So gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me and of course giving us your inputs. We'll continue the discussion. We've got the main stakeholders representing the buyer with us. And of course, we'll be joined by new voices from the developer community. Right after the break, I think there are more points to be taken care of and taken a deep look into. My big question is, so do I still have to go to the court? And how much can the regulator help me beyond what level or at what level do I have to go to the court? So we'll try and get that answer when we come back.
The Realty Debate with Manisha Natarajan, powered by Reliance Home Finance.